The music at the corporate party was loud enough to drown thoughts, but not loud enough to silence memories. Ethan Cole stood near the edge of the ballroom, holding a glass of water he hadn't touched for 20 minutes, watching people who lived lives very different from his own laugh like tomorrow was guaranteed. Suits, gowns, polished smiles, and expensive watches, this was the world of Hawthorne Industries, and he existed in it only because he had learned how to stay invisible. Ethan wasn't here to celebrate. He was here because his boss had insisted. "You're part of the team," she had said earlier, her voice calm and professional, the same way it always was when she addressed him. Claire Hawthorne, CEO, billionaire, and the woman who unknowingly controlled the fate of his entire life, didn't know that Ethan had spent the morning packing his daughter's lunch with one hand while tying his tie with the other. She didn't know that babysitters were expensive, that sleep was rare, or that the only reason he worked late was because being a single dad didn't leave room for mistakes. To her, he was reliable. Quiet. Efficient. That was enough. Across the room, Claire stood surrounded by executives, her champagne glass raised as she smiled for cameras and compliments. She looked flawless, as always, tailored black dress, hair swept back, posture straight like she was born carrying the weight of empires. Everyone saw strength when they looked at her. No one noticed the tightness in her jaw, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, or how her laughter came half a second too late. Ethan noticed. He always did. Maybe it was because he'd learned to read emotions early, back when his late wife's illness taught him how to spot pain before words ever arrived. Or maybe it was because loneliness recognized loneliness, even in crowded rooms. As the night stretched on, the party grew louder, messier, looser. Glasses refilled faster. Ties loosened. Promises were made that would be forgotten by morning. Ethan was just about to quietly slip away when he felt a tap on his arm. "Ethan," Claire said, her voice softer than it had been all night. Up close, he could smell the faint citrus of her perfume mixed with champagne. "Do you have a moment?" He nodded immediately. "Of course, Miss Hawthorne." She hesitated. "Claire," she corrected, then shook her head as if surprised by herself. "Actually, I need a favor." She glanced toward the exit, then back at him. "My driver left early. Would you be able to take me home?" Ethan froze for half a second. This wasn't in his job description. He was a senior analyst, not a chauffeur. But the look in her eyes wasn't commanding, it was asking. Tired. Human. "Yes," he said quietly. "Of course." The ride was nothing like he expected. Claire sat in the passenger seat, heels kicked off, one hand resting on the window as city lights blurred past. For the first few minutes, neither of them spoke. Then she laughed softly. "You know," she said, "everyone thinks parties like this are glamorous." Ethan smiled faintly. "I've always thought they looked exhausting." She turned toward him, surprised, then smiled, a real one this time. "Exactly." Silence settled again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt honest. When they stopped at a red light, Claire suddenly spoke. "Do you ever feel like you're surrounded by people who don't actually see you?" Ethan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Every day," he replied before he could stop himself. She nodded slowly, staring ahead. "Me too." That was it. No dramatic confession. No tears. Just two people acknowledging the same quiet truth. When they reached her building, Claire didn't move right away. She looked at him, really looked at him, as if seeing him for the first time outside spreadsheets and meetings. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "Not just for the ride." He nodded, unsure what to say. "Good night, Claire." She smiled again. "Good night, Ethan." The next morning, Ethan's alarm went off at 6 a.m. sharp. He rolled out of bed, made breakfast, braided his daughter Lily's hair, and walked her to school like every other day. By the time he reached the office, the party already felt like a distant dream. He was reviewing reports when his phone buzzed. "Claire Hawthorne wants to see you." Immediately, his stomach dropped. Had he crossed a line? Said something wrong? He straightened his jacket and walked to the top floor, every step heavier than the last. Claire stood by the window when he entered, her back to him. She turned slowly, expression unreadable. "Close the door, please," she said. Ethan did. His heart pounded. She took a deep breath. "I couldn't stop thinking about what you said last night." He swallowed. "I'm sorry if No," she interrupted. "Don't apologize." She stepped closer, her voice lower now. "What you said reminded me of who I was before everything became about control." She looked him straight in the eyes. "Ethan, I did something this morning that shocked even me." He waited, barely breathing. "I canceled my engagement." The words hit him like a thunderclap, and in that moment, Ethan realized his life was about to change in ways he never imagined. Ethan stood frozen as Claire's words echoed in the quiet office, the hum of the city far below them sounding distant, unreal. "I canceled my engagement." For a man who spent his life controlling numbers, risks, and outcomes, he had never felt so completely unprepared for a sentence. His mind raced, not with hope, not with jealousy, but with confusion and a deep sense of responsibility. This was his boss. A powerful woman. A life he was never meant to step into. "Claire," he said carefully, choosing his words the way he always did when Lily asked difficult questions, "I don't think that has anything to do with me." She let out a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it for years. "It has everything to do with last night," she replied. "Not because of what you did, but because of what you didn't." She gestured toward the chair across from her desk. "Sit down." As Ethan sat, she paced slowly, heels clicking against marble floors. "Everyone in my life wants something from me," she said. "My family wants legacy. My fiancé wanted access. My board wants profits. Last night, for the first time in years, someone sat next to me and didn't ask for anything." She stopped in front of him. "You saw me. Not Claire Hawthorne the CEO, just Claire." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "I wasn't trying to see anything," he said honestly. "I was just being human." Her lips trembled at that, and for a split second the strongest woman he knew looked fragile. "That's exactly it," she whispered. Word spread through the office by lunchtime. It always did. Claire Hawthorne had ended her engagement, weeks before the wedding. Stocks wobbled. Executives whispered. PR teams scrambled. And suddenly, eyes began to follow Ethan wherever he went. Some curious. Some suspicious. Some hostile. He felt it most when Mark Reynolds cornered him near the elevators. "Funny how close you've gotten to the boss lately," Mark sneered. "Careful, Cole. Men like you don't belong in her world." Ethan didn't respond. He had heard worse before, at hospital billing offices, at school meetings, at places where single fathers were treated like anomalies. He simply walked away, reminding himself why he worked so hard in the first place. Lily, that evening, Claire asked him to stay late. This time, not for work. "I know this is inappropriate," she said, standing by the desk with 2 cups of coffee, "but I don't have anyone else I trust right now." Ethan hesitated. Then he nodded. They talked for hours. About her childhood, growing up in boardrooms instead of playgrounds. About his wife, Emma, and the way cancer doesn't just steal people, it steals futures. Claire listened like it mattered. Like he mattered. When he finally checked his phone, panic shot through him. "I have to go," he said abruptly. "My daughter, Lily," Claire said softly. You've mentioned her. She smiled. Go. Family comes first. Those words stayed with him all night. Days passed. The tension grew. Claire pulled back professionally, careful, respectful, but the unspoken bond between them remained. Then one afternoon, Lily's school called. She had collapsed during recess. Ethan left the office without explanation, heart in his throat. At the hospital, he sat shaking beside his daughter's bed, memories flooding back, error clawing at his chest. Hours later, a familiar voice spoke behind him. How is she? Claire stood there, hair undone, jacket forgotten. I drove as fast as I could. Ethan stared at her, stunned. You didn't have to. Yes, she said firmly. I did. Lily woke up smiling, asking for ice cream like nothing had happened. The doctor said it was exhaustion, dehydration. Relief washed over Ethan so hard he nearly cried. Claire watched him from the doorway, realizing something in that moment that changed everything. This man didn't just survive hardship, he loved through it. Later, as they sat in the hospital cafeteria, she spoke quietly. I don't want to hide anymore, she said. But I also don't want to cross lines that hurt you. Ethan looked at his hands. I don't want my daughter growing up watching me be afraid of happiness, he replied. Their eyes met. No deal. No power play. Just truth. The scandal came anyway. Photos. Headlines. Accusations. Claire was accused of favoritism. Ethan was accused of manipulation. The board demanded answers. Claire stood before them all and said, if you think integrity is a weakness, then I'm in the wrong room. She resigned that day. Not in defeat, but in choice. Weeks later, Ethan watched her teach Lily how to bake cookies in his small kitchen, flour everywhere, laughter filling spaces that once held only silence. Life wasn't perfect. Money was tighter. The future was uncertain. But it was real. Months later, Claire stood on a small stage,